I glanced at the time displayed on my radio. 12:05. Definitely won't make it in time for class, I thought. I glanced back at the police officer's body in my back seat, his blood draining from the gape in his neck, staining the seats a dark crimson. Definitely gonna be late.
Where am I?
You're in my car, I spoke disinterestedly. I was too fixated on the thought of skipping yet another day of calculus. I started to bite the cuticles on my nails subconsciously as I wondered if my teacher would let me retake the test tomorrow.
Why am I in your car?
Because your body's in the back staining my seats. I recall my teacher informing us that he would drop the lowest test grade. I still have a chance, I kept reassuring myself.
That's my body?
Screamed the voice, his newfound confidence nowhere to be heard. Yes, you're dead. This is a problem since I'm going to have to dispose of your body, which is going to take all day, and then I'm going to have to spend the whole night replacing my seats and still find a way to finish my essay.
You killed me?
Appears so.
Why?
Homicidal tendencies, if I had to guess?
You have to inform the police.
Why would I snitch on myself?
You killed me!
I groaned. It's always the same every time. You're repeating yourself, I informed him, still preoccupied with my grades. Sit there and collect your thoughts, and then speak. We both sat for a while, staring at the endless forest resting just beyond my dash.
What are you going to do with me?
Probably Jeff Dahmer it.
Jeffrey Dahmer me?
Dissolve your flesh in acid, break down your bones, and bury the remains behind my brother's junk shop. The car grew silent for a while after that, both of us still staring at the uninhabited forest before us.
If that's my body, then how am I speaking to you?
I can see ghosts. Only problem with that is ghosts tend to haunt things until they decide to move on. Usually victims tend to haunt their murderers, so if you can move on as fast as possible, that would be great.
I'm haunting you?
Appears so. Seems you have unfinished business. Like final words to your kids or something. I'll help you move on so you can get out of my life as soon as possible.
I think I know what will allow me to move on.
What's that?
Turning yourself in.
I turned the ignition on. I sat there for a while listening to the low idle of the engine. That's a no-can-do, I assured him as I reversed out of the woods and back onto the highway. Guess I'm stuck with you for a while. Hope you're not too skittish around blood. We both stared forever, never once attempting to turn around and remind ourselves of what was behind us. I drove for about an hour on the main road until I pulled off onto a gravel road, traveling down twists and turns for about 30 minutes before arriving at my destination. I turned off the ignition and sat there, staring at the office door to my brother's car shop. I really don't want to do this.
Is the guilt eating away at you?
No, it's just he's going to be so disappointed when he finds out that I killed again. This response seemed to demoralize the spirit as he slumped back in his seat facing forward, eyes wide with sadness. Well, guess no time like the present, I said, stepping out of my car and inhaling fresh air that hadn't been violated by the stench of decomposition. I gazed around the old junkyard. Leaves filled the ground around the entrance. Cars never meant to run again littered the land. My brother's business beaming bright lights as the screams of machines echoed out. My brother's junker was never open to the public, yet business still boomed with the under-the-table dealings. Customers all around the state came here to hide things or get cars changed to look like new. I walked over to the door that held a close sign on the front. I took a deep breath and knocked softly, fearing his disappointed stare.
I'm coming. Chill.
His voice boomed through the cheap wooden door. He swung the door open, and I saw that familiar, tired face. His massive frame blocked the entryway as he stared down at me. Hey, bro.
What's up, lil sis?
He sang in a cheery voice. I have a situation, I mumbled in a hushed tone, refusing to look up. I could feel the glare. That horrible glare of disappointment stabbed right through me.
What do you need?
He spoke in a graveled voice. All cheerfulness seemingly disappeared. I need your assistance. I looked up and saw the spirit staring at my brother, in awe at the size of his towering stature.
Let's go take a look, shall we?
He exclaimed, putting a hand on my shoulder and guiding me over to my white BMW. He gripped the handle to the back seat and swung it open. The stench of the corpse caused by the beating sun made us both retreat for fresh air.
Damn, Lil Sis, is that a cop?
My brother held a handkerchief over his nose to block the overwhelming stench of death.
This is serious.
Yeah, but he didn't call for backup or anything before pulling me over, I explained defensively, hoping to defuse the situation. I looked over and saw the spirit, wide-eyed, mouth agape, staring at his own corpse.
What did he do? Did he try shaking you down or anything?
No, he just wrote me up for a speeding ticket. I stood up straight, trying to regain my posture, still fixated on the corpse. His dried blood caked all over my seats.
You killed a man just for writing you a speeding ticket?
You killed me just because I wrote you a ticket. You decided to take my life because I made you pay a fine.
Tell me everything. Every little detail. I need to know everything before we continue.
He spoke in a slow and deliberate tone. I took a deep breath. You know how I drive like an hour every day to get to college?
Yeah?
Well, since it's just an hour of straight road, I tend to forget about my speed.
When are you getting to the part that makes this murder justified?
After around the 5th ticket, I couldn't stand getting pulled over.
You never thought, oh, I need to slow down.
I was on a highway! You shouldn't enforce speeding laws on a highway.
You shouldn't enforce laws on a highway?
Well, I eventually stopped, started following the speed limit. Today, though, I woke up late to my calculus test, nervous about failing. I rushed to my class, and that's when I saw his lights in my mirror again. I tried so hard to keep my emotions in check, and he walked up to me and motioned to me to roll down my window. I asked if he could make this quick, because, I was already running late to class, in which he responded with mockery. He informed me that I would make it to class on time, and he took my license back to his car. About a half hour went by, and I decided to look back at his car. He was just sitting there on his phone, watching a video.
That's still no reason to kill a person. Sis, how am I gonna explain this to my boss?
Tell him it was a mistake? My brother sighed.
What happened next?
I tried those breathing exercises you showed me. But every time I glanced back, I saw him laughing. I felt his laughter banging at my senses. I couldn't think straight. I drove slowly to an off-road and he followed in pursuit. I parked my car out of view of any onlookers and allowed him to approach my car.
That's when you stabbed a hole in his throat?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll call some people I know. They'll take care of the car and make it look like a hunter mistook him for wildlife. This is doable. I can make it seem like a hunter committed the act so they won't profile you.
Thank you.
Don't thank me yet, we have a lot to do. I'll be back.
He said as he marched off towards his office. I stood there staring at the wind rustling through the flowing trees as they towered over me. I can probably finish my essay tomorrow and turn it in late, I thought.
You're actually gonna get away with this,
the spirit said defeatedly. Most likely. My brother has a lot of connections.
Who is he?
My brother Hazel? He knows a lot of people. He told me good connections with bad people will always trump bad connections with good people. The spirit walked over to a nearby tree and slumped down, staring at the rows of broken cars.
I had a girlfriend, I had friends. I had a job that I enjoyed. Now it's all gone. With how many times I pulled you over, I never remembered your name.
It's Penn.
Mine's Almond.
I stood staring at Almond's lifeless body. If I drop my calculus class, will I still be considered full-time?
Catch.
My brother shouted as he tossed me a shovel that broke my train of thought and nearly my jaw as it collided with my face.
The sun will set soon. Let's get to work.
Almond did everything in his power to hold back his tears as my brother and I picked up his body and lifted it out of the car. Why didn't he cry? I thought. He's dead. Who's gonna judge him? My brother lifted his upper body while I followed in pursuit with the lower half, together shuffling towards the shed. We placed him on a blue tarp just outside the door.
Grab the plastic wrap. We need to prep the room.
Hazel stretched, preparing for the grueling work we were about to perform. Why are we using plastic wrap now? I asked, looking at the massive amount of rolls on the ground.
Saw it on Dexter. You ever watch that show, little sis?
Almond looked dumbfounded at his explanation.
You're following a show on how to hide me.
I'm not a big fan of crime shows, but the first 2 seasons are really well made.
He continued to inform me of how great the show was as we put our plastic aprons on and walked inside. The shed was nothing special, just an empty room with a metal table in the middle and a bathtub in the back. We began immediately covering the walls and floors with wrap, all the while Almond sat outside, refusing to see his private room.
Wow, the show made it look so much easier.
Hazel chided, wiping the sweat from his face with his shirt. We stepped outside and found that the sun had already laid to sleep, and in its absence was a full moon illuminating the pale corpse. Almond looked up at me with eyes of desperation.
Please, don't do this. Please just bury me. You already killed me. Don't make me watch my body be violated.
Hey, Hazel? Can you get someone else to help you? I'm sorry, but I have an essay in humanities due in the morning. Maybe giving Almond this could help him move on, I thought. Hazel stared at me for a while, trying to find the right words to whatever he wanted to tell me.
Yeah, little sis. But just promise me you won't do this ever again.
His words had its intended effect. I felt sadness sting my throat as I imagined my mother seeing all the bodies I've amassed. I promise this won't happen again, I assured him. He hugged me tightly and told me to change into some fresh clothes and take his car home. He assured me he would finish up here and be home by tomorrow afternoon. My brother taught me how to live at a young age. After I killed my uncle when I was a child, my brother would visit me in prison every day, educating me of his own commandments that I should live by. He kept reciting the first rule every time we met. The first rule is gospel and should never be broken under any circumstances. Rule 1. Family always comes first. I laid in my bed that night, unable to sleep. Not because of the incessant questions that Almond kept berating me with, but because I just couldn't understand any of the study guides for my calculus test. I turned over to my side and faced Almond sitting in the corner, staring at my fish swimming around their tank.
How many have you killed?
I think you're my 5th one.
Did they suffer?
No, usually it was done with a knife. Except for the first one. That was done with a gun.
How long did they take to move on?
Not long. I usually write a letter to their loved ones, and they tend to move on after that.
Why are you able to see ghosts?
No idea. I could just see them ever since I was young.
What's it like on the other side?
Don't know. Never died before.
Do ghosts sleep?
Don't know. Never been a ghost before.
How far can I be from you?
I have to get up early tomorrow for my younger sister's baseball game. Can you ask these questions tomorrow? Almond laid his head against the wall and kept staring at the fish swimming around the tank.
What's your sister's name?
Penn?
Can she see ghosts?
No, I haven't met anyone that can see them like me. He sat there for a while in silence. He seemed to be taking being murdered pretty hard.
What do you think is the worst way to die?
Drowning? I closed my eyes, trying to block the tide of thoughts about college out of my head.
Yeah, that's a bad way to go.
My thoughts died down as I began to drift off to sleep.
Good night, Penn.
Good night, Almond. I woke up the next morning, already late for my little sister's game. I threw on a hoodie and the same jeans that I wore yesterday and sped out the driveway.
Watch the speed limit!
You're still here?
Told you, I can't move on until you get caught.
Ugh, then shouldn't you want me to speed?
I just don't want another cop to get shanked in the throat.
Don't worry, I promised Hazel that I would put all that behind me.
Glad you decided that after you murdered me.
Are you always going to be this sarcastic now?
Are you gonna turn yourself in?
We kept bickering until I pulled off into the parking lot of the small stadium. I turned the ignition off and took a step out of the car. The leaves sank from the trees as the sharp wind blew them towards the field. The field was much like every other kid's baseball field. Rusty cage-linked fence, cold metal bleachers, and only one bathroom that was covered in graffiti. I rushed over to my mother and took a seat next to her in the bleachers. The bleachers were nearly empty, except for about 3 other families.
I was wondering if you were going to show up.
My mother said in a joking manner. Sorry, traffic was terrible. We continued to make small talk until Almond started repeating my name. I leaned over to Almond. What do you want? I said in a hushed whisper.
Look.
He pointed towards the field. I followed his gaze towards my sister's coach. He was a tall, slender man, clean-shaven with well-kept hair and almost perfect posture. Below him were 3 young girls, no older than 10, gagged and bound, dirt caking their bodies and tears rolling down their eyes.
Did he murder those girls?
Almond asked, disgust rising in his voice. Appears so. My eyes wide. Realizing that it wasn't even 12 hours later, and I was going to have to break my brother's promise.
We have to call the police.
Almond commanded. And tell them what, that my sister's coach is a child murderer because I can see ghosts?
Then maybe you should... you know...
Almond made a jabbing motion with his arms. Here? In the open?
Just, do it in the bathroom. You have to do something. Look at how many of those girls he killed. He could do the same to your sister.
You think I don't know that? I began to shout. My mom leaned over in my direction.
If you have to talk to yourself, can you at least keep your voice down?
Sorry, Mom. I'll be right back. I assured her as I raced back to my car.
You just got here.
She cried out toward my direction, but I was already in a full sprint. I ran to the car to check for my knife. I searched everywhere throughout the car, but to no avail. This isn't my car, I said, slamming the door shut.
What?
This is my brother's car.
What does that mean?
It means that I don't have anything to kill him with.
Then just choke him or something.
Fun fact, I'm not a trained killer. I racked my brain, trying to think of some way to handle the situation. My mind raced with ideas as I watched my sister land a hearty whack that sent the ball spiraling down the middle field. The hit allowed her teammates to safely make it across the home plate, and rapturous applause billowed from the crowd. Her coach was staring with what appeared to be pride as his victims stood around him. I noticed one of them had water leaking out of her gag, and her hair freely floated towards the sky. I shuddered at the thought of my sister drowning. How do we know that he wants to kill my sister?
What do you mean? He has 3 dead girls circling him.
Yeah, but what if he's done killing people? Or what if he wants some other girl?
He murdered children. He deserves to die.
But right now...
This monster could kill your sister at any time. Do you want to take that chance?
Okay, hypothetically, if I was to kill him now, what do you think would be the best way to go about doing it?
Just wait until he's taking a piss or something. Look at how run down this place is. There'd be no cameras in the bathroom.
If that did work, how would I dispose of the body?
That doesn't matter. Making sure that the monster doesn't hurt anyone else is all that matters.
Sorry, but going to jail again would kill my mother.
God, can you do one unselfish act in your life?
Can you stop haunting me and let me handle this? We screamed back and forth at each other until we noticed the coach leaving the field.
He's going to the bathroom. Now's your chance.
Almond beckoned. I panicked as I either had to act now or risk the coach ending my sister's life. I checked the glove box for anything that could conceal my fingerprints. Nothing. Just a small stack of license plates.
What are you waiting for?
I can't go empty-handed.
Your brother's a criminal. He has to have something. Check under the steering wheel. Usually that's where dealers keep their stash.
I hit the bottom of the dash multiple times, but it showed no signs of buckling.
Try the trunk. Usually there's a false bottom.
I opened the trunk, but there was no indication of a false bottom. Only a spare tire.
What about the gas tank?
I'm not checking the gas tank.
Then just use a rock or something. We're running out of time. Lift the tire. Maybe there's a crowbar or something.
I tossed the tire out of the trunk and looked around for something, anything, but The trunk was perfectly clean.
Penn, look.
Almond pointed to the tire that I threw on the ground. The underneath was hollow, and taped within it was a tightly rolled black bag.
Bingo! A gun. Grab it and let's kill this waste of space.
Try not to sound so eager, I mocked as I unrolled the bag and found a box of latex gloves and an assorted bundle of medical equipment. Scalpel, pliers, and a metal mouth prop that dentists use to keep their patients' mouths open. Why does he have these? I pondered aloud.
Maybe because he's a criminal that has ties with a gang? Are you surprised?
He owns a chop shop. He hides things. For some reason, the thought of why my brother had these hidden in his car filled me with sadness.
Look, we don't have time for this. We have to go now. He's been in there for 5 minutes already. We're almost out of time.
I slid the gloves over my hand and placed the scalpel in my back pocket. I looked around, trying to think of how I could pull this off. The bleachers were facing the opposite direction of the bathroom. Only a few families were here, and most of them were mothers. The chance of witnesses was low. No fingerprints, no cameras. No way to trace this back to me as no one saw me here. No one except my mother. Shoot! I yelled.
What now?
My mother saw me.
So what?
If I left after the murder, she could piece together that I killed him.
Sorry for repeating myself, but so what?
She can't find out that I killed someone.
Oh my god, we don't have time for this. He's going to get away.
Without thinking, my feet started to move in the direction of the bathrooms. As I jogged towards the bathroom, I thought about how to solve my mother's problem. I could stash the murder weapons in my mother's car and convince her to leave. I can get my brother to call her and pretend an emergency at home happened. If the cops decide to search inside everyone's car, mine would be clean. I arrived at the bathroom door and stopped. My feet felt as if they were frozen in place.
What's the matter?
This isn't safe. This is all too sudden. I tried talking sense into myself, but Almond kept hammering thoughts into my head.
What are you gonna do? Wait until he's done with your sister to act?
I felt that sick anger starting to rise in my chest. I had to do this. My sister could be next on his list. I closed my eyes and walked into the bathroom. Rule 2. Family isn't the blood that you share, but the blood that you're willing to spill. Inside the dimly lit bathroom, one light fluttered overhead, radiating a low hum. A blue ceramic wall greeted me, issuing me down a hallway to the right. At the end of the passageway was a row of sinks, each adorned with a mirror. I walked over and gripped the sides of the sink. I glanced over at the stalls, and in the farthest one peeked 2 legs.
Now's your chance.
Almond instructed loudly. I placed my hand on the scalpel in my back pocket. I'll just wait until he walks out and charge him. Take him by surprise. That's how all my kills go.
Just slide it across his neck. Easy peasy.
Almond said determinedly. It was obvious that Almond didn't care if I got caught or not. If I was to get caught, he would see it as getting 2 birds with 1 stone. I didn't want to upset him, but I had no intention of getting caught today.
I sure hope you two are not threatening to kill me.
A voice echoed out of the stall with the accompaniment of a toilet flushing. Almond and I exchanged glances, both speechless.
I'm coming out. I would hate to have my throat slit in a bathroom.
The voice said as the stall slowly swung open. The coach straightened his shirt and walked over to the sink, washing his hands and straightening his hair.
Now, what did I do to upset you, lady and gentlemen?
You can see me?
Almond spoke dumbfounded.
Of course I can see you, and such a shame too. I hate to know that a handsome gentleman such as yourself passed away.
The silence was palpable. Neither Almond nor I knew what to say.
Look, I would hate for someone to interrupt our private conversation.
He turned the lock on the door and faced us.
Now, why would you two want to harm little old me?
Maybe because of those 3 girls.
Almond pointed towards the children huddled together in the corner of the hallway.
Oh, those? Nah, don't worry, they're just reminders.
Reminders? I blurted out, surprising myself.
The ends justify the means.
He said, waving his hand and walking towards me.
Just rest assured that it was for a justified goal.
Justified? How can you justify killing children?
He stopped mere inches from my face and leaned in, making sure that our eyes were locked together. I clasped my hand around the scalpel and slashed it towards his neck, hoping to end that horrible smile. But he was anticipating this. The moment he saw my shoulder move, he quickly took 2 steps back, giving himself more than enough time to avoid my attempt at a quick kill. He grabbed my outstretched hand and placed his right foot behind my left leg, and using a surprising amount of force, placed his hand on my head and slammed it against the sink's counter. I fell to the floor as if I were a corpse, gripping my head and desperately trying to find a way to stand up. The coach kneeled and grabbed the scalpel from the floor.
Why did you decide to use a scalpel? How did you even get a scalpel?
He examined the tool closely, turning it over multiple times.
This has seen a lot of work. Look, it's beginning to rust here.
He bent back down and pointed at a speck of rust at the tip of the scalpel. I placed my hands on the counter and started to pull myself up. The coach saw this and helped me up and dusted off my clothes.
You can walk that off.
He smiled at me.
But not this one.
He gave me no time to regain my posture as he rushed me. Using his momentum, he picked me up and slammed me against the mirror above the sink. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Shards of glass rained down on my back as I gripped my sides.
You're not a normal coach, are you?
Almond said, taking his attention away from me.
What gave it away? The ghost girls?
He said, chuckling.
Your moves. They're too coordinated. Too calm.
Coaching is indeed just a pastime for me.
He bowed as if he was a lead in a play, receiving applause for his performance. He was enjoying every second of this, and he wasn't afraid to show it. I lifted my head and pushed my arms against the ground to hoist myself up, but a swift foot came rushing down, colliding with the top of my head, slamming my face back into the cold ceramic ground.
I don't remember giving you permission to get up.
He informed me as he landed a swift kick to my sides. The impact caused all of the air to expel out of my lungs, which left me desperately gasping, like a fish out of water.
Can you give the kid a break?
Almond shouted at the coach.
Shouldn't you love this? This kid killed you, a decorated officer.
He said, spinning around to face Almond.
You should be thanking me for avenging you.
An enemy of my enemy killed 3 children, so it complicates things.
The coach chuckled.
You said they're reminders, and it's obvious that you're not just a coach. So what are you? Some kind of crime lord?
Almond said, diverting his attention away from me. I used the time Almond was giving me to pick myself up. I grabbed a shard of broken glass and gripped it tightly as I regained balance. Blood fell from my nose and my busted lip, forming a crimson puddle below me.
I'm not proud of these, you know. I keep these around to remind me to never trust family.
You're a crime lord, aren't you? Hiding out in plain sight as a Little League baseball coach. Going after the family of people who betray you?
Wow, color me impressed. Were you a detective?
Just a lucky guess.
A cop with intelligence and a bright future. Doesn't it fill you with hate knowing that a kid stole all of that from you?
He walked closer to Almond and stared straight into his eyes.
I can help you, an eye for an eye.
He said with complete sincerity.
You can help me by killing yourself.
Almond spat vindictively. That was my cue. I lunged forward, hoping to dig the shard into the back of his neck, into anything vital. Instead, I felt my foot slide under me due to the puddle of blood denying me any semblance of friction.
You can't be serious. You actually slipped on your own puddle of blood? Oh my god, this is great.
We will kill you.
Almond shouted, trying to mimic some brave soldier from a movie.
Who? Ghost Cop and his sidekick Slips over there? Tell you what, I won't kill you because you two are such great sports. Promise me we'll meet again. Oh, what am I saying? I know we'll meet again. I'll make sure of that.
He chuckled to himself as he walked down the hallway and out the door, leaving only silence in his absence.
That didn't go as planned.
Almond said as he sat down next to me. Why do you say that? I grunted, trying to pick myself up off the floor once again.
What's the plan?
Almond asked me. go home and shower? I placed both arms on the sink and lifted myself upwards.
Go home? We can't just leave.
Yes, we can. We're going home and possibly to the hospital. I gripped my side. Breathing proved to be a difficult and painful process. I turned around and twisted the handles on the sink. Clean water came pouring as I splashed it onto my face in hopes of washing the blood off.
What about your sister?
I turned off the sink and faced Almond. Look, he said he only went after those girls because some guys stepped out of line. I don't work for him, so he has no reason to go after my sister.
You're just going to let that monster walk away?
As long as he doesn't target my family, it's not my problem. I placed my side against the wall for support and slid along the hallway until I arrived at the door.
Is everyone that can see ghosts a psychopath?
I opened the door and allowed my eyes to adjust to the searing light. I glanced over towards the field. Both teams were shaking hands. I spotted my sister running across the field to hug our mom. I wiped the blood off my nose and straightened out my clothes. With a deep breath, I walked towards them. As I walked closer, I noticed my mother talking to a tall, slender man. His reminders staring at my sister.
Oh, Penn, come here for a sec.
My mom motioned for me to come join her. I wanted to run, but it was too late. He saw my face. He saw my family.
This is Mr. Check, Penn's coach.
Why, hello, Penn. It's a pleasure to meet you.
He extended his hand to me. Mom, I think we should go.
Check says that Penn has a bright future ahead of her.
Oh, yes. I think she may be a baseball prodigy.
He retracted his hand and placed it on his hip. Almond stood there silent, eyes wide.
Mr. Check, tell Penn the good news.
My mom was too excited to see the cold sweat pouring off of me.
I'm going to start having morning practice tomorrow for a select few who I think stand above and beyond the rest of the team.
And Penn is one of them? I asked reluctantly.
Oh yes, she is at the top of my list.
Isn't this fantastic, Penn?
My mom shouted cheerfully.
You should be proud, Penn.
Check said in a playful tone. Guilt ran through me as I stared at my sister, knowing that I inevitably sealed her fate.
What's wrong, Penn?
My mom finally noticed my attitude. I'm fine. I just gotta go see my brother, I said as I turned to walk away. Anxiety coursed through my body. My sister sat on the bleachers smiling as I walked away, unaware of the 3 girls sitting by her, watching me as I ran away. Rule 3. Never lie to family. I needed help. It was past midnight when I arrived at my brother's shop. The moon washed across the field, illuminating the graveyard of cars. I limped over towards the light coming from my brother's office and pounded against the door.
Do you know what time it is?
He shouted as he swung the door open.
Oh, it's you, little sis. What's up?
I need your help.
It's only been a day.
It's not like that. Can I come in?
Yeah, come in. I'll make you some coffee.
I walked into the stench of alcohol and expensive cologne. A group of people in suits surrounding a circular poker table all greeted me. I walked past the group and towards my brother, who was adding water to the coffee maker.
Don't mind them, sis. They're harmless.
Who are they? I glanced at them. They each wore an expensive suit with an imprint of a gun lining their pockets.
About to be losers once I win this poker game.
He chuckled and stumbled backward.
So tell me, sis, what happened this time?
Someone wants to hurt Penn. His posture stiffened as he gritted his teeth.
Who?
Her coach, Mr. Check. The room fell silent. The boisterous circle all turned to face me.
Stevia Check?
My brother said weakly. Yeah, I think so. Why? I heard the ruffle of a coat pocket and the metallic rattle of a gun. One of the players from the circle wasted no time placing a gun to my head.
Why did our boss's name come out of your mouth?
Ben!
My brother shouted.
Calm down.
You know how he is, pal. He'll kill us all if we let some runt just diss him.
Ben, this runt is my sister, and you're pointing a gun at her.
Ben slowly lowered the gun.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay, bro.
My brother reassured him.
Come here, let's hike it out.
The two embraced each other. My brother slowly took the gun from Ben's hand and placed it on the countertop.
Now, never point a gun at my family again.
My brother whispered as he slammed Ben's head against the countertop. The circle all looked, never uttering a word as Ben toppled to the ground.
Take Ben and get him to a hospital.
My brother said in a low roar. The circle all dragged Ben's unconscious body out of the office, but one stopped just outside the door and turned towards us.
If he's after Penn, you know what that means, Hazel.
Hazel grabbed the gun and pointed it at him. The man ran away towards the dispersed crowd that was now getting in their cars. They peeled out, leaving only a cloud of smoke behind them. He tossed the gun on the table.
Sit down.
He motioned me towards the circular table, his cheery voice gone, now replaced with a low and grim tone. Please don't tell me you work for Czech. I sat on the stool, anxiety swelling in my chest.
Are you positive that he wants to hurt her?
I don't know, it's just that... How could I explain to him what happened? That I attacked his boss in a bathroom because I can see ghosts?
Just what?
I have never seen this expression on my brother. I've never seen him afraid before. He's her coach. He wants to have private lessons or something with her tomorrow morning. He looked down at the table, trying to think of the right words to say. Minutes went by before he finally spoke.
Penn, listen. He's my boss. He's also the boss of a very dangerous organization. If we kill him and people find out that we killed him, you, me, and our entire family will be hunted and killed.
What do we do? My brother sat there for what felt like forever. My brother always had an answer on the spot. Seeing him sit there and think filled me with dread.
Okay, we have one chance at this.
He said, standing up and walking over to his closet.
We have to do this perfectly. Everyone we love is dead.
I leaned over, trying to see what he was looking for in the closet, but he was already on his way back by the time I leaned over. He placed a small brown bag on the table and sat back down.
I can't be the one that does this. I have to be here so I can have an alibi. So here's the plan.
He grabbed the brown bag and emptied its contents on the table, revealing a syringe with a clear liquid inside.
This is 10 milligrams of opioid etorphin. This is used by veterinarians to subdue elephants.
How did you get this?
Learned about it from Dexter. I called in a lot of favors to get this. No one in my job knows I have this, so this can't be traced back to us. Czech has a track record with drugs, so no one would bat an eye if he overdosed.
You want me to inject him tomorrow?
You just have to get this in his neck, okay?
What if I mess up?
This is where Plan B comes in.
He picked up the gun from the table and handed it to me.
We kill him. I use my money to get you and the family far away from here. And I face the music.
Those can't be the only two options.
Faking an overdose is the only possible way we can walk out of this alive, Penn.
He slammed his hand on the table. His hand was trembling.
This is about that cop,
he said dejectedly. Almond looked up from the syringe and stared at my brother.
He's probably after Penn because we stepped too far out of line by killing that cop.
My brother placed his head in his hands. This is all my fault, I said defeatedly as I stared down at the syringe.
You can feel guilty after this is over.
My brother placed the syringe back in the bag and slid it towards me.
Family always comes first.
Yeah, I grabbed the bag and walked towards the door. What if I fail tomorrow?
Then you won't have to worry about calculus.
Rule 4. Living for family is more important than dying for family. Almond and I sat in the car in silence as I peeled out of the gravel road and back into civilization. He He tried turning the radio dial, but after many failed attempts, he slumped back into his seat. His attitude annoyed me. Why was he upset? He gets to watch two monsters kill each other. Isn't that what he wanted? "What's wrong with you?" I blurted out. I couldn't stand his moping anymore.
What do you mean?
Almond stared out the window, watching the trees drift by. "Check's right. You should be happy that I'm about to die. You had a bright future. A brighter one than me."
I wouldn't say that.
What do you mean? My anger began to rise in my throat. You had a girlfriend, friends, a career? I glanced at Almond. He was staring at me with watery eyes.
You deserve better than this.
He looked at me as tears rolled down his eyes. You're wrong. He wiped the tears off his cheek.
I hated my life. My father was a well-loved detective. He was a beacon in the community. He pushed me so hard to follow in his steps, and I followed blindly, never once thinking about what I wanted. Throughout the academy, I never made any friends, or even left my room except to go to classes.
Sounds like me. I stared at the stars floating above us as we drove down the endless road.
After the academy, I ran away. I wanted a fresh start. Or maybe I was scared that I wasted so much of my life.
He stared up at the stars with me.
Ironically, no matter how far I drove, nothing changed. I ended up settling down here, made no friends, and became a traffic officer to pay the bills.
It's still better than me. You had time to figure it out. Time that I stole from you.
If you didn't steal it from me, then I would have.
What? I took my eyes off of the road and stared at him. For the first time, I felt like I could actually see him. That he was real.
It's funny. I tried it multiple times. Every time I was too scared to pull the trigger. I prayed to God to help me. And sure enough, not even a day later, and you showed up.
Do you hate me?
I don't know. I don't know if I hate you, myself, or Check more.
Then why are you sad? Shouldn't you be happy that Check and I are about to kill each other?
I'm upset that I don't want you to die. Like, how weak is that, that I want my murderer to make it out of this alive? What kind of Stockholm Syndrome is that? It's so pathetic.
He stared out the window. His bottom lip quivered as he silently sobbed against the window. I'll write everything down. I'll chronicle these past few days in case I don't make it back tomorrow. I promise you, your story will be told. His gaze never averted from the window.
Thank you.
He said, in a low whisper. The car was quiet after that. We made it home safely, and I set an alarm for the next morning. I laid against the bed and stared up at the ceiling. My thoughts were still. My anxiety was nowhere to be felt. Is this how death row inmates felt? Calm acceptance of your death? Exhaustion must have gotten the better of me as my phone's alarm went off, jolting me awake. I shuffled towards the bathroom to see if my face had swollen any. I nearly made it to the sink when Almond walked through the bathroom door and examined my face.
Whew, he really did a number on you.
He said as he paced around me. The bridge of my nose had swollen to double in size, and a massive welt blistered my bottom lip. I ran my hand over the back of my head and felt the swollen ridge where he slammed my head against the sink. The pain in my side stabbed at me with every step, so I lifted my shirt to inspect the damage. A dark purple spanned the upper upper left side of my body. I lowered my shirt and rested my head against the sink. Can I pull this off? I thought to myself, the odds were not in my favor. I closed the bedroom door behind me and limped into the living room. My mother's voice echoed from the kitchen.
You're up early?
Where's Penn?
I just dropped her off. Why?
This was all I needed to know. I hobbled to my car as fast as I could, and Almond followed in hot pursuit. I turned out the driveway and sped towards the school.
What's the plan?
Almond asked optimistically. There's a group of children there, so he would have to wait until the end of practice to make his move.
I don't understand.
Almond pondered.
How can he kill your sister and get away with it?
I never stopped to think about his plan. How would he kill her? My mother would be there to pick her up, and there's no way he could make a believable excuse as to why my sister went missing. Maybe he's gonna make a run for it, or stage a kidnapping. No matter how many plans I went over in my head, none would leave no evidence.
Remember what he said.
Almond's mind raced along with mine.
We'll meet again. I'm sure of it.
Almond was right. He didn't plan on killing her. There was no way he could kill her and get away with it, and he knew it. He was after me. My mind raced furiously as I sped to my destination. What was I gonna do? I was walking into his game. I was playing by his rules. I had to do something he wouldn't expect.
What are you going to do?
Almond asked. Easy, I replied. I'm gonna call the cops. I pulled into the gym's parking lot and gripped the brown bag.
You sure you want to do this?
Almond asked. It's the only thing he won't be expecting, I muttered as I slid out of the car. The girls, including my sister, were running around the track, but there was no sign of check.
At least they're safe.
Almond said reassuringly. The double doors connecting the gym to the outside swung open.
Good morning, Penn.
Chet came strolling out of the doors and down the steps.
Oh, and I see Almond is still following you.
I placed the brown bag in my pocket and marched towards my death.
Please, join me in my office. Honestly, I was expecting you sooner, so I made coffee. I'm afraid it's gotten cold, though.
He placed his hand around my back and guided me towards the gym. I remained silent as our footsteps echoed through the hollow gym and towards his office.
I was getting worried you wouldn't show up.
We stopped just outside his office door, and with a firm hand, he nudged me inside.
Please, take a seat.
He said in a demanding voice as he closed the door behind him. I took a seat like he asked, and he sat on the opposite side facing me. His office was pristine. His walls were adorned with various trophies and plaques commemorating his achievements. An extravagant mahogany table separated us as he stared at me, barely able to control his excitement. The three girls stood outside staring in through the window, waiting in anticipation. Almond stood behind me, hands crossed, keeping a firm glare at Czech.
You know why you're here, correct?
Czech asked in a demanding tone. I made sure to give my answer as bluntly as possible to not give him any information he may not have had.
Oh, heavens no. I want to give you a choice.
He folded his hands together and leaned towards his desk. Choice? I responded.
You see, Hazel has always been like a son to me. He could get information from people like no other.
What do you mean? I asked, curious about my brother's role.
He was my information guy, you know?
Czech opened his mouth and mimicked pulling one of his teeth out. Why didn't he inform me that his real job was torturing people? Was he ashamed of it? He was an intimidating guy, sure, but he never took pride in hurting other people.
Also,
Czech leaned in and whispered.
Also, just between you and me, his idea to open a car shop business to help hide his Lauda guests was genius.
I shuddered at the thought of Hazel using the tools in his car. He leaned back in his chair.
That's why it pained me when I found out that he had gone and killed a cop. I excused all his other off-the-clock killings, but a cop? I soon found my place of business infested with detectives shoving permits in my face and asking 1,000 questions.
Isn't killing my sister a bit overkill, though? I asked.
Kill your sister? Oh, God, that's sick. I would never go that far. My original plan was to simply drug her and take photos of her, show your brother that if he stepped out of line again, what I could do. But then you showed up.
His smile began to creep across his face.
You attacked me in a bathroom in a half attempt to kill me just because you saw that I had baggage.
It was clear that he had rehearsed this multiple times. He probably spent all day going over these lines in his head, trying to find the best take. He continued his speech.
After the bathroom, I began to think, why was the ghost of the cop that Hazel killed following you? It just didn't make sense. That's until your mom introduced us. That's when I realized that you were Hazel's sister. You were the one that killed the cop, and your big brother Hazel was taking the fall for you. It all made sense. But why stop there, I thought? What if every dead body he hacked up and hid was actually a result of your homicidal rampage? All this time, Hazel had been covering for your little homicidal hobby.
I glanced over at the window. All three girls' attention was fixated on me now. I was his target.
So, this is what I decided. I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll teach good old Hazel not to cover for other people's mistakes, and I'll get rid of the person who's creating problems for my company.
When does the choice come in? I said firmly, refusing to show him any weakness.
It's more of an ultimatum. You drive me to your brother's car shop and let me kill you there, or I drag you there and make your brother dispose of your body as he did with so many of your victims.
I glanced over at the two double doors. What was taking them so long, I thought? Why did you kill those girls? I asked, pointing at the three onlookers outside the window. Czech sat back in his seat and smiled. He was a man that enjoyed talking, and I was gonna let him talk.
3 of my employees tried to make a break for it. They threatened to inform the police of this organization if we tried to pursue them. I'll never forget how bad those 3 hurt me. I loved them. They were my family. You never turn your back on family. So I got my employees to track down each of the next of kin. Luckily, they were all family men.
He stared at the girls in the window.
I drowned each one so that I could remind myself to never trust family.
How did you get away with it?
That was the easiest part. We just set it up so it looked like they had killed the daughters and fled the state to start a new life.
I glanced back at Almond, who I could tell was starting to get nervous.
It was nice to find out that there were other people that can also see the dead. Shame it had to end this way.
He stood up and placed his hand on my shoulder.
You ready to get this over with?
Yeah, I said, standing up. Let's go. We walked towards the gym door with the baggage in tow. I listened to our feet echo around the gym until we both paused when we heard a haunting sound. The low roar of a siren could be heard, quickly gaining volume as it echoed around the gym.
Did you call the police?
He turned and faced me as I took out my phone. I recorded everything.
This little modest stunt just cost you and your family's life.
Have fun trying that when we're both in prison.
You think it's that simple? This is a small town. Ever heard of jury tampering?
I clenched the syringe in my back pocket. I hoped that I didn't have to use it.
Even if they did arrest me, I have people on the outside. Good plan, genius. Have fun protecting your family when you're in jail.
He was right. I had to kill him here. But if I struck at him, it would just be a repeat of the last time. I needed a distraction, and fast. I heard a pair of footsteps grow louder as they approached the double doors. It was over. There was nothing I could do. There was a loud pounding coming from the other side of the double doors. Czech turned to face the sound.
I'm coming, officer.
Czech turned to face the sound. I didn't have time to think. I lunged forward and plunged the syringe into Czech's neck. The doors flew open and the officer instinctively raised his gun as he saw me press down on the syringe, forcing the opium into Czech's vein.
What the hell was that?
Czech screamed as he toppled to the ground, seeking refuge behind the cop. There was nothing either of them could do. Within minutes, Czech laid there on the pavement, motionless. Rule 5. If you can't live for yourself, live for your family. After the incident, I disassociated for a while. It wasn't until a heavy-set police officer firmly repeating my name brought me back to my senses. I was in an interrogation room. Metallic cuffs wound too tight restricted the blood flow to my hands.
We listened to your recording.
The cop said sternly. There was one last thing I forgot to tell Czech before he died. I only recorded his confession about the murder of those 3 girls.
What you did was extremely foolish.
The cop was a father. The way he was talking down to me showed it.
But what you did was brave.
History is written by the victors, and so are confessions. I told them that after I noticed Coach Czech was using a syringe to inject an unidentifiable liquid into his veins, I called the police. Czech noticed me in his drugged-out state and forced me into his office. Once alone with him, he threatened to kill my family if he ever got arrested. That's when he informed me about how he killed the daughters of 3 men who crossed him before. Terrified of losing my family, I hastily and regrettably injected one of his syringes into his neck when he wasn't looking. With this evidence in my testimony, they found me innocent. Just a scared kid defending herself. Fearing that his organization might seek revenge if this got out, they decided to keep my name anonymous and write his death as an overdose. I was free to go. Waiting outside the police department was my family. My mother hugged me tightly and began to sob. My sister and brother had to pull her away from me, and that's when my brother patted me on the back.
I knew you could do it,
He said reassuringly. For the first time, I saw Almond smile. The next day, my brother helped me dispose of my knife, along with his tools. And together, we buried them in the graveyard of cars in front of his shop. Even though my brother felt that we covered our tracks fairly well, he still decided to send our family off onto a surprise vacation with his savings. Shortly after, I returned to college for a short time. I failed my calculus test. Made a 24%. After that, I decided to take a break for the semester and withdrew from the college. My brother is still working at his car shop, trying to act as if nothing happened. My sister decided that baseball wasn't her thing and instead wants to take archery once she gets back from her vacation. Almond is still haunting me, insisting that he can't move on until I'm caught. I think he just wants to stay because he likes me, which is strange now that I think about it. Who knew murdering someone was a great way to get to know them? With the truth out in the open and the 3 fathers free, the girls were finally able to move on. Czech decided not to haunt me for some reason. Maybe he was mad that I beat him in the end. Or maybe only innocent souls are allowed to haunt things. I'm not an expert on ghosts or Czech. It's been about a week, and true to my word, I'm writing down everything that has transpired in the case of my untimely death. I'm writing this in a Denny's and trying my best to properly recall everything that happened in those hectic 2 days. I'm deciding to post this so hopefully Almond can move on. I am, however, changing everyone's names so that no one can track me down. I did write down a list of everyone's real names. The list is currently hidden under my fish tank. If I'm ever found dead, hopefully someone will know where to look. My brother assured me that we were safe, yet he still extended our family's vacation by another week. I want to believe that we made it out safe, that they haven't found out that I was the one that killed Czech. But as I write this, I can't help but notice Almond's nervous glances around the diner. I also can't help but notice all the ghosts sitting at the tables staring at me. Almond is telling me that we need to leave. I believe him. I know that once they've taken care of me, they're gonna go after my family. If staying alive keeps my family safe, then they better get used to following me. Almond says someone is approaching my table. I guess it's time to leave.